Isn't it ironic how the church, a place of grace, love, and restoration, can sometimes feel like a courtroom where judgment is swift, harsh, and unforgiving? Yet we are also called to hold one another accountable. So where's the line? At what point does accountability cross into judgment? And more importantly, how do we confront hypocrisy in a culture that claims to live by truth? First, let's set the record straight. Judgment and accountability are not the same. Judgment is condemning someone, placing yourself on a pedestal while looking down on another. But accountability is love in action. It's about standing alongside someone, helping them rise above their struggles. Jesus drew this line clearly. In Matthew chapter 7, verse 1 to 5, he says, "Do not judge or you too will be judged." But he doesn't stop there. He calls for us to remove the plank from our own eye before addressing the speck in someone else's. Why? Because accountability starts with humility, not hypocrisy. But let's be honest. This isn't always what happens in our churches. Instead, we see a culture where sins are ranked, where some struggles are whispered about in the back rooms while others are paraded in public for ridicule. James chapter 2 verse 1 warns us. It says, "My brothers and sisters, believers in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ, must not show favoritism." Yet, favoritism exists when we tolerate the sins of some while crucifying others for theirs. This is hypocrisy, and it's killing our witness. Think about the woman caught in adultery in John chapter 8 verse 1 to 11. The Pharisees dragged her before Jesus, ready to stone her for her sin. But where was the man? Where was their accountability for their own actions? They were not even seeking justice, they were seeking judgment. And Jesus exposed their hypocrisy with a single statement. He said, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." This story reveals something critical. Accountability without grace becomes hypocrisy, and hypocrisy drives people away from the church instead of towards Christ. So, what does true accountability look like? Galatians chapter 6 verse 1 gives us this answer. It says, "Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. But watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted." Notice two keywords: restore and gently. Accountability isn't about calling people out to humiliate them. It's about calling them up to the life that God has for them. It's about walking alongside them in love, with humility and without superiority. When accountability turns into judgment, it becomes toxic. It creates a culture of fear where people hide their struggles instead of seeking help. It creates double standards where leaders are not held to the same expectations as the congregation. And worst of all, it misinterprets the character of Christ. Matthew chapter 23 verse 27 records Jesus saying to the Pharisees, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites, you are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean." Hypocrisy focuses on appearance, but God looks at the heart. So where do we go from here? How do we create a culture that balances accountability with grace, truth with love? First, we start with ourselves. Matthew chapter 7 verse 5 reminds us to deal with our own sins before pointing out others. True accountability begins with humility. It's not about perfection, it's about authenticity. Are we willing to acknowledge our own struggles before we help others with theirs? Second, we commit to restoration. Ephesians chapter 4 verse 15 says, "Speak the truth in love. Love is the foundation." If our words don't build people up, they are not accountability, they are judgment. And that's not what the church is called to be. The church should be a place where people can confess their sins without the fear of condemnation. A place where accountability is rooted in love, not superiority. A place where grace is abundant and hypocrisy is confronted. Because at the end of the day, we were all sinners saved by this very same grace. And if we truly believe that, then our call is clear. Not to judge, but to love. Not to condemn, but to restore. Not to be Pharisees, but to be like Christ. So the next time you feel tempted to judge, ask yourself this: am I restoring this person gently? Am I pointing them to Christ? And most importantly, am I doing this in love? That's the fine line between judgment and accountability, and it's a line that we must never cross. Enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.